mean for Silva?
Well, really, it's not the company's stance that Anderson Silva has to worry about. It's the Nevada Commission stance. And immediately right off the bat, I think one thing we should make clear is the reason this fight was able to still continue, even though this positive test came from January 9th, the fight occurred on January 31st. A lot of people out there saying, well, wait a second, how in the world does Anderson Silva get to compete against Nick Diaz when he has anabolic steroids in his system? NSAC Chairman Francisco Aguilar told me that the results of that test were not available until today, February 3rd. That is why the fight was able to continue. Now, in terms of the future for Anderson Silva, he's looking at a possible fine. He's looking at a very likely suspension. Obviously, this affects his legacy. This guy is known as the greatest fighter of all time. Mixed martial arts has seen sort of an issue with performance-enhancing drugs over the last 12 months, but Anderson Silva was looked at as perhaps maybe this guy that, would never get caught up in something like that. He's just too pure, has too much respect for the sport. Now, obviously, that changes. In terms of his win over Nick Diaz, that could change to a no contest. We're still up in the air on that. I think the commission is going to have to discuss this situation because it is unique. Anderson Silva with PEDs, and actually Nick Diaz failing the test as well.
Mark, what has UFC said about that main event, what they do moving forward?
The UFC is caught in a hard place here. I think obviously what they want to do is to come out and say, this is not what we stand by. We don't support drug users. The UFC has actually, said in the past that they're willing to front costs of drug testing. Drug testing is not cheap. It is very expensive. A lot of times these athletic commissions don't have enough money to do it. So they've really tried to make a public stance against PEDs. But here you are, you've got a situation in which both guys failed tests, one guy for PEDs, one guy for a substance of abuse. It's unfortunate because this was really looked at as sort of a feel-good night. It was Anderson Silva coming back, as a lot of people remember, from a 13-month layoff from a very brutal leg injury in which he snapped his leg in the octagon. It was supposed to be a celebration of Anderson Silva, and now instead we find out he's tested positive for steroids.
Brett, we were out there in Las Vegas for this card, and we spoke with Chael Sonnen and Gilbert Melendez, who thought if he lost this fight, he might call it a career. After the fight, Anderson Silva, even when he won the fight, said he might consider it after he talked to his family. When you take all this into consideration, with your gut, what do you think Anderson Silva does?
My gut says that this would be a very difficult thing to retire on. I don't know if Anderson Silva will want to walk away from the sport, and this is his last hurrah, a positive drug test. Now, that being said, this guy is turning 40 this year. He's facing a suspension from this positive test. It might be a while before we could ever see him come back. Did he even look right? Should he have come back physically from what we saw on Saturday? I'm not so sure that I needed to see him come back. So very much up in the air. But a big part of me says that if you're Anderson Silva, you can't retire on this.
Don't go out like
my
this.
gut
Okay.
says he'll be back.